Right foot this time, Martin Odegaard.
Zinchenko from Ketty, it's four. Martinelli tiptoeing in. Predatory, perfect. There is a gorgeous arrogance about Arsenal now.
It really is. They are enjoying every second of this.
Hello and welcome to Not Another Arsenal Podcast, aka the Hector Bellerin of Arsenal Podcast. My name is Mike Hers, your host. Today, boys, we're going to discuss the 2-2 draw versus Sunderland. Guys, for fuck's sake, I take 1 week off and we concede all types of goals. Not going to fly with me, gentlemen. I'm not going to let this happen. I promise you, I will finish out the season on this podcast. I will not let Arsenal concede any more goals this season. It is an absolute travesty. But needless to say, frustrating. But there's a few positives. I'm going to cling on to the positives, copium, as Twitter fears would say. I'm going to hold on to that and see if it gets me through the international break, which is always a very boring period for most club supporting teams. Or supporters, should I say. First and foremost, as always, introductions. Chris, welcome back, Chris.
Hello, guys. Mike, you need like a magic cup like Kelly had a few seasons ago, right? Where
the magic mug.
The magic mug. It was sitting on whatever it was sitting on, and Kelly was, being the superstitious one that he is, refused to move it or touch it because we were on a phenomenal winning streak. Mike, you got to get something like that. Maybe it's like you don't, I don't know, take a shower, or you don't comb your hair, or you don't change your shirt, something like that, Mike. You got to get superstitious on this, man.
Yeah.
We need to bring all the superstition behind our club and make sure that we can see this season out with some big trophies.
You say all that like the first time my hair is semi-combed because I cut it. I come dressed in green instead of black. You say that like, oh, this is the new tradition. I got to wear green on the podcast.
It might be true.
You never know, man. You never know. And of course,
I will say the mug thing eventually ran out of.
It ran out of juice.
Sorry, the mug thing did run out of juice there, unfortunately.
Yeah, it had a good run, to say the very least. Kelly, let me be the first to say you did an awesome job as host last week, man. I enjoyed the show as a bystander. I was in the live chat for a solid 15 minutes, and then life little responsibilities took over. But it was good. Mm-hmm. I went to hang out with Mickey Mouse. He robbed me blind. Other than that,
that rat bastard.
Kelly, how
literally a rat bastard.
That rat bastard. How did it go, Kelly? Welcome back, sir.
It went well. It's just like a cup match where you got to give the armband to Marino, and he does a serviceable job keeping things ticking. And was it kind of jammed out with the wind? Didn't overextend or anything. We kept it in second gear, just like a Mikel Marino captain squad would, and bare bones did all the way home. But no, it's fun. It's definitely. You do get to digress a lot less, and I don't like that. But it was fun, and we got a good participation. And don't ever leave me again, because I like to ramble incoherently and fade in and out. So can't do that when you're hosting.
All the responsibilities of pressing buttons and looking up lineups is just too much for you. It interferes with the rambling. Don't worry, I got you covered, Kelly. We won't do that
Thanks, buddy.
Enough. So, Chris, we're going to talk about the starting lineup as we often do. No major surprises, because quite frankly, we've been running the same starting 11 for a very long time at this point. But one thing I'm going to stick out, and just because we're in between the Sunderland game and international break, let's talk about our left back situation, because reports suggest that Thomas Tuchel is wanting a little bit more minutes on the field for Miles Lewis-Skelly. Somebody with a brilliant podcast, and I honestly genuinely wish I could remember this guy's podcast name, but he kind of pointed out that he's 19 years old and he's played 50 times for the club. 19, 50
and 7 international caps, by the way, too.
So 7 international caps. Scored one, I believe. I want to say he scored a goal.
One or two. Yep.
Or two. Okay. So by all measurements, by any way, shape, and form you want to measure this, he's doing really good. Really, really good for a 19-year-old. Now, for these reports to kind of come out, I'm telling you, man, a few things I like less than the international break, and part of it is the news media and the stupid fan debates that tend to happen every single international break. How are you looking at this, man? I mean, I'm fairly certain that Miles Lewis-Skelly is at ease with it. What is your take?
My take is that I don't understand international coaches in that they seem to put so much emphasis on playing time and recent playing time at the club level, because no other left back in the Premier League, you look at all the starting left backs in the Premier League, no one's got the competition that Miles Lewis-Skelly does for that left back position. And so if you're going to base it on who's getting regular starting minutes at Premier League teams, you're already disqualifying players who are on squads like Arsenal, where you might be second or third choice. Having said that, if you were to line up all the best left backs in the Premier League, I'm pretty sure we probably have 3 of the top 5 in the Premier League right now. I mean, it's insane how much depth we have at that position. And so it just seems kind of crazy to me that if I'm Tuchel, I ought to all of a sudden start thinking that just because Miles Lewis-Skelly isn't playing regularly, that all of a sudden he's not as good as he used to be. I mean, you literally played him. I'm guessing Tuchel gave him most of those 7 starts, maybe all of those 7 starts. Now, magically, he's not good enough to play that position. It doesn't hold water with me. I don't understand why international managers do that. It feels to me like, and I know I've seen them broadcast in these stadium seats watching games live. So I know they watch the games live or probably a lot of it on video. I know that they know that, like, that they're watching tape, that they're watching, them play, that they're watching how they perform. There's no way you can tell me that you saw how Miles has been performing for you in your squad up until this point, and to say, well, just because he's not playing for his club, he doesn't deserve to start on for England. It doesn't make sense to me. It
doesn't hold weight when you look at some of the other, like James Trafford is the 3rd keeper for them, and James Trafford is like a deep backup at Manchester City. I mean, Dean Henderson is one of the better Premier League goalkeepers, and he is not in the squad. I don't know if that's an injury omission or what, but you kind of look down. Nick Pope is somebody who plays and starts regularly and has 10 caps. Ramsdale has 5 caps, even though he's a backup. Like, you go through 2 even defenders. Like, Reece James has only played 22 times for England, despite being like included in squads for 6 years, because he's never, ever, ever fit. Like, literally, Miles has played a quarter of the England caps that Reece James does already. At recently turning 19. John Stones is not a regular starter anymore. He's a rotation player. Trevor Chalobah is only playing because there's a perpetual injury crisis at Chelsea with center back. Dan Burn is ostensibly a left back, but is really a center back. I think the big tap out here was that Nico O'Reilly came in, who has been a good player for Pep, but he's doing that thing that Pep always does, which is take like a positionless, like high level technical player and just kind of jam him in there. And I think that, because like if you know anything about O'Reilly, he's like 6'4", 190, and he's similar to Miles. He's an interior midfielder by trade, but he's really good, so they got to put him somewhere. But as an actual player who's going to play left back in meaningful minutes for you, is he going to do that? I mean, again, a lot of this stuff. And another one too, like Alex Scott is playing from Bournemouth, who is somebody who didn't really have any sort of international cap before this. Like, I think it's one of those things where it's a much ado about nothing, and the kind of lighting the fire, and then the transition piece where they're talking about how all Premier League clubs are circling, and Miles isn't happy with that, which is all a Sky Sports like horseshit thing. And of course, Canton, who is like tied into the club, releases a story today. It's like, no. Miles is very happy. Like, cut this shit out. Like, this is not going to be a thing that happens. First, it was the ill discipline for Miles based on nothing, and now it's this like inventing a transfer saga out of the clear blue sky for January. It's like, you don't need to do this. It seems like it's a combination between ChatGPT and Jamie O'Hara are like doing the content, the full content producing here. Everything is just some sort of manufactured bullshit for Sky involving Arsenal in some way, and it's just really tiring.
That's funny that you say that, because Sky Sport, that's not the first time nor the last time we're going to mention them this particular podcast, because I have a lot to say about them, and they kind of been a thorn in my fucking ass the whole international break. I swear to God, they come up with the most randoms of stories. But yeah, I think he's doing well. I think nothing's unsettled at Arsenal. Nothing's unsettled with Miles Lewis-Skelly. There's small potential that he's gonna play versus Spurs, ironically, because Calafiori has been injured the last 2 games for Italy, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, he got injured before the last one, and this time around he traveled but wasn't part of the squad. So there's no guarantee that he's gonna actually be able to start versus Spurs, which is going to be a difficult game to come into, having not played for several weeks. So The fitness of our squad is a little bit of a weird one going into that one. Second thing I wanted to mention, Kelly, is I'm just starting off this one. This happened early on, maybe 10, 11 minutes in. My notes say, and I quote, Shaka is a bit of a jerk.
Yeah.
Okay, so the lead up to this, and I got to say, man, and again, I'm a Yank from afar, and I know that sometimes
No way. That's surprising.
Go watch the Dodgers, win the World Series, stay out of my sport, et cetera, et cetera. But I got to tell you, like, I could appreciate an ex-player, but like the whole lovey-dovey shit thing that like I see a lot of supporters do, I don't get it, guys. Like, I am fully on board of not booing a player that comes back, but not supporting him either. Not like I hope he has a good game type of shit. Like, I'm still slightly traumatized of when Oliver Giroud came in for Chelsea and they fucking cheered. They sung his name at the Emirates. I don't get it. And maybe there's a disconnect that I just don't quite fucking understand because I'm not a local, but I don't understand showing that much respect towards a player. You can love him in the 90 minutes that we don't play, but I think it's kind of weird that like the whole media and everything about Shaka and romanticizing, and I get it, but I also don't get it. So, would you say it was overall a typical Shaka performance, and were you amazed at all, surprised at all, Kelly, that he had that? I'm gonna say, I'm not going to call it a visceral reaction because it was honestly, it was a warranted reaction because, Merino did make a little bit of a meal out of the challenge, but I don't know. There's something about Shaka that I guess I wasn't expecting it, but I mean, fuck, he reminded us the type of person or not person, the type of player and competitor he is.
Yeah, I think that's the generous way to take it is that he is a highly competitive player who plays on at and past the edge when he's at his best. He's advancing in age, and he's 31 or 32, and I'm certain that he sees this season as this is my last big punch at the highest competition, which he viewed. I mean, again, he went back, he incredibly successful too when he went back to Germany. Was part of the invincible Leverkusen squad, upset Bayern's monopoly on titles there. Was a really big part of an important team, and he came back in kind of a surprising move when he went there, honestly. But like, I mean, it's paying dividends so far. He's doing all the Xhaka things the good Xhaka things. Remember, again, playing with an edge, distributing the ball at an incredibly high level, huge motor, really, really vocal. I think what's really kind of funny about Xhaka is that he because of his playing style and his attitude, he really is kind of like a mid-table throwback player for the Premier League, right? And he kind of was, his attitude and his like maybe lack of physical grace and his like really, really rough demeanor was maybe not super compatible with like the late Wenger years and early in like kind of the transition period. Like, we weren't a gritty club yet when he was there, and he kind of stuck out in a negative way, which is always seems like it was always the line was like, if Xhaka did that, he'd get red carded because he was like this very like scratchy, abrasive person and player in the middle of this kind of like soft, dainty team. So he stuck out a lot. And I think he curbed his natural inclinations a little bit more later on to be more of a cog in the wheel for that last season where he was playing the kind of attacking eight. And before he went back to Germany, and this is Xhaka like in his pomp, not stepping aside for anybody, like being a total prick, like being really bargy, having the captain's armband and using it as an excuse to lay onto like a weak ref and crawl up a weak ref's ass the entire match. And like, that's who he is. Like, and again, an international level, he's incredibly abrasive. Remember him and Xherdan Shaqiri got into trouble because they were like flashing the Albanian eagle in like making political statements in match against you. Like, I don't think that Granit Xhaka is probably a very nice guy in real life, and he's definitely not a good person to play against on the pitch. So I think it was one of those where you kind of, again, Mike, like you said, we look back and we kind of romanticize who these players were and kind of like, oh, they're great guys. Like, Xhaka's probably not a great guy. And like being in an away stadium where they're like super motivated to win and they have a lot of momentum and they're playing against a bigger club and his former club, like, I'm sure he wanted to fucking kill us. Like, he didn't want to be like mutually respect. Like, that's not who he is. And like, frankly, if we thought that's what he was going to be, we're foolish. And I really hope that when they come to the Emirates, our goal is to beat the fucking shit out of him and wipe the smile off his face. Because, I mean, just because he was a failure as a captain and was tagging along on the back end and played well in the last season he was here, like, it obviously doesn't mean a ton to him. So, like, or at least in his current career situation, he's very, very fine with moving on and having no love lost for any of the Arsenal players or the club, which is fine. He's entitled to that. But, like, I certainly hope that the club doesn't deal with him with any deference or an overt overture of respect. And frankly, for a little bit, I hope somebody just goes straight through him and cuts his legs out from under him and sorts it out. Like, you motherfucker, you still can't run. You're 33, and you should stick your fucking nose back into your business then, if you're going to try to act like Johnny Big Balls here. Because that early season momentum you got here, a newly promoted club who dumped a bunch of money into it, it's not sticking around past December. So sort your shit out, Grandpa. Like, that's where I'd be at if I were the club anyway. The Arsenal players.
And I agree with your guys' perspective. I think the conversation changes if he's here for the 6 years he's here and he wins stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that then you have to respect what the guy was instrumental in bringing to the club. The problem is he was here for one FA Cup that no one saw live.
2 FA Cups, I think.
2 FA Cups. You're right.
I think it was like 16.
He was here a long time. 19.
First, yeah. It was. I think it was like 16 and 19, I believe, something like that. He was here for a while. Yes.
The last Wenger one and the Arteta one.
Either way, I think we're having maybe a slightly different conversation if we win the league or the Champions League or both while he's here, but we didn't. So fuck him, right?
But, yeah, I think it's
that what you guys were saying.
Sir. I like that.
It's very different to not like somebody who was in the news with us last week, like Nacho Monreal, like. Like a nice, like, lovely guy, played 190 matches for Arsenal, like just a complete sweetheart, and telling the story if he gets the call from Malaga. Do you want to go? And I want to go right away. And I went to I was signing the contract before I even got a hold of my wife because she was working, and like he's just the sweetest guy. Like, obviously, like, an incredibly sweet guy. And of course, he's buddies with Santi Cazorla, who's a sweet guy, and like calls him like, Granit Xhaka is not friends with Santi Cazorla and Nacho Monreal. Like, that's not. It's just, I think he's a different person, a different player. And when he's a huge prick, and when he's on your team and playing well,
he's your prick. Yeah,
and he's directing that very aggressive, like, kind of ratchety energy towards people you dislike. Then you love him, and he's your prick, he's your guy. But the second that guy is not on your team, he's everything that other teams and clubs hated about him comes to the fore again. Chippy, running his mouth constantly, G'ing up the crowd, like playing on the edge, instructing his teammates to play on the edge, and manipulating shit refs, which we saw more shit officiating from the PGMOL again last week, which we see in perpetuity now. Like, all the reasons why other clubs dislike him, and kind of what drove you nuts about him when we weren't playing well, and he was a big reason why we weren't playing well, all comes to the floor. And like, the biggest thing with him too is you got to remember, like, he literally like threw the captain's armband down and walked off. And like, somebody who's like who truly loves the club, under no circumstances, no matter how bad it gets, would ever do something like that. So like, you got to understand that, like, that last season, he saved a lot of face, and I think he went up in a lot of our books a lot. But like, he doesn't love Arsenal. He never loved Arsenal. He will never love Arsenal, and certainly not in a way that we see again, like players like even like Monreal and like Santi Cazorla and Lucas Podolski. Like this club meant something and still means something to those players. It does not. This Arsenal does not mean something to Granit Xhaka in that way. It's just the place he played.
It doesn't come off like that. I'm kind of curious what happens like towards his like retirement years. I'm just kind of curious if he like posts pictures with Arsenal gear, because like even and I say this, and I know this is like a controversial person right here, but essentially like Alexis Sanchez is still very much like upset with himself about the time that he spent at Manchester United. Like every time he posts a picture of him, his kids, or whatever, he's wearing Arsenal gear. Stuff like that. I mean, there was even like some crazy rumors that he wanted to be like come back to the club when he was like just floating around for like a loan spell.
He's doing his like one and dones in Italy now. He's basically doing the thing where he's like 37. He's just extending his career 1 year at a time at whatever level he can. But yeah, like he said, what his big story was like after he got to United, like a week after, he's like, "Can I go home now?" Like
the day of, I think.
Yeah, Yeah, it's like
where it goes. Yeah, he finished
within a
up
day. It's like,
training.
no,
He went back home, called his agent, and says, "Is there any way we could terminate the contract and go back?"
it's like
Absolutely insane. And
No,
this is
you
what,
played
man,
the piano at Old Trafford. You're not allowed back.
yeah. Once you played the piano, yeah, no. And you know what's crazy about that? Just digressing a little bit on the Manchester United, he's not the only player that's ever said that. Like, there's plenty of players that have came from really big clubs to United. And they just like thought that United was a big step up, and Di Maria fucking hated it. Casemiro's not that fond of it. Zlatan just completely slammed it. I think Mourinho mentioned how shit the facilities were. Like they got a bad reputation, man. So long may that continue. I'm gonna say.
They've just killed their most recent £70 million striker too, isn't it? His knee is fucked now, isn't he? Isn't Šeško hurt now?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I thought he got hurt at the end of the last. In addition to not playing very well there, which again, who does play well there?
Again, man. Who?
Brian Buemo apparently, because that guy is nuts there. Like, he's a really, really good footballer for what it's worth. Like, he's quite a good player.
He's outshining both him and Cunha, Šeško and Cunha, which is kind of remarkable. Sure. I say remarkable. I say remarkable because I like Šeško and I like Cunha. And then Bueno's the one that's outperforming everybody. So, boo that man for performing well, and continue on path Cunha and Šeško. One thing that Kelly mentioned while discussing Granit Xhaka, Chris, was the shit that Granit Xhaka kind of got away with. You know, he kind of took advantage of it. I don't know if was it Paulson, the referee for this game?
Yeah.
Dude, the atmosphere was rocking, and I understand why maybe that could have intimidated a little bit, but it just felt like that it's one of those games where like a lot of things that could have gone our way did not go our way. I mean, and far be it for me to rehatch the luck or no luck type of discussion, but as far as 50-50 goes and generosity from the ref, I generally think, Chris, this is one of those games in which Sunderland definitely benefited from the plucky industrial team, where they just kind of got away with a lot of soft fouls, a lot of like little fouls. And I mean, hell, even the foul, the yellow that Zubimendi picked up, I was kind of like, what are you
even a foul?
What are you talking about, dude? He actually got like half the ball prior to taking out the player. But the fact that the ref sees that and says, no. You went through him. You can't do that. Here's the yellow card. I'm just kind of baffled about that. But I mean, on balance of things, Chris, we're 11 games in. Are you kind of okay with this type of officiating once in a blue moon? Because I kind of feel like for the most part, it's been pretty normal for us this season.
It's been normal because we haven't had like 5 red cards by now. And
with Chelsea
for us.
It's true. I mean, I don't know. I think there are just so many referees in the PGMOL who are a soft touch to a home crowd, a raucous home crowd.
I'm really, really quick, one sentence too. I think we have the highest home win percentage at this point of the season ever right now, which is, again, probably an indication that favorable officiating is happening towards home crowd. So sorry, Chris, jump in there.
No, I just think that there are a lot of officials who cave to a raucous crowd. And I think this is probably one of those situations where you give the benefit of any doubt, not just the doubt, but any doubt to the home team, because, you know, the home crowd's behind the home team. Yeah, I mean, the elbows to Marino, we had two head injuries this game to Gabriel and to Marino, who had to have medical come out. I think they both got, you know, band-aided up, stitched up, whatever it was. Which suggests to you, and I haven't looked at all the replays multiple times. It's been a while since the game, but that, I mean, I think it was Ballard that elbows Marino.
He's a very elbowy player too. So like, if you actually get Dossier's, if you actually get
victim of his height almost.
I mean, I think he's just clumsy. Like he's a talented player. So he's from Arsenal's academy. Yep. And he kind of went through I think League 2, League 1, and kind of came up and everything. So he's a good player, good footballer, but he's enormous and he's really fucking really high-end championship lumpy. And so I just think he throws a lot of elbows because he's big and not super fast, and the striker's running past him, so he's going to swing his arm out there. I mean, that's another one of those too that, like, the idea that's a foul anywhere else. It's certainly more of a yellow card than
Zubimendi's,
was, and I don't think it's even close. And so if you're going to give Zubimendi a yellow for that, but you're not even going to call foul for that because it's in the box, you don't want to give a penalty for a elbow to the head. Like it's one of those like our biggest complaint with it's like, again, our biggest complaint with the PGML is that every call is viewed in isolation, and not just like week to week and ref to ref, but like the same ref in the same game will have this massively different thing, and you just have no idea. Whatever contact happens, you have no idea what's going to happen with PGML officials, and that's part of the reason why they stink. Like that's why, like that's bad management and that's bad ref training. There's no accountability for these guys just calling out and ad hocing every fucking decision. And I think and that's why, I mean, really, like we know it's probably partially, at least partially, a scam, but like, yeah, it's another one of those where it's like you just see that come across. And it's like, but he was making it out, like you elbowed him right in the face. Like we're not that long. Like in the first year of VAR, like they're saying that for a red card check, truly, and like it's a coin flip whether he's getting sent off, and Pawson doesn't even blow it, even though it happens right at like point of contact with the ball. So like I don't know, it's very, very strange stuff.
We've seen a lot less given as penalties and cards to our players in previous seasons, and not this season, but in previous seasons. So it's one of those calls where if one of our players does what Dan Ballard does, for certain it's a penalty.
Yeah.
And at least a card. And it's another situation where it feels like we don't get the benefit of any doubt, not just the doubt, as I said before. Yeah, it's again weak refereeing, unfortunately, and I think that is a very pervasive theme across many of the PGMOL referees, that they cower and play to the crowd. And for some reason, and I don't know, maybe this is not necessarily something that's happening this season, but I remember in previous seasons we used to bitch and complain about how it seemed like referees would give the home crowd, the home team, the advantage because of the home crowd, but it seemed like it never seemed to apply to us.
Yeah.
Maybe less so this year, just because we win so much, it doesn't even matter. But it certainly applied here, and we were on the losing end of that equation, unfortunately.
Yeah, and unfortunately for us, a little bit of shit refereeing, aka the Zubimendi carded foul that he received ended up being the main thing that caused the goal. I see the main thing. They had a lot of defending and a lot of things to do, but it's the foul that gave them the ball to transition into attack, and not faulting Zubimendi at all. I worded that poorly, but they sprang the ball forward, Kelly. I think Rice misses the header entirely. Along with Daniel Ballard, if I'm not mistaken.
He loses the heading.
Talk about things that didn't go our way. Ball rebounds almost directly into a Sunderland's player head. I want to say it was Traore, maybe potentially, who heads it back into the middle. And here comes big Daniel Ballard. Just 2 touches, bang, swings it in. And look, it was a series of bad events and bad rebounds that led to this goal. I'm not feeling too hard done by anybody else, but you know what? I'm not the greatest at analyzing defensive things. I always find that some people have like point the finger and say this guy should have carried this guy should have carried this guy. I viewed it like ball rebounded out of Gabriel's headed path. Rice and Daniel Ballard weren't able to reach it, neither of them, and it just coincidentally fell for Traore, who knocked it in Ballard's pass. So 1-0 down, Industrial, plucky Sunderland, crowd goes wild, and things become automatically more difficult for us. How are you feeling at that point in time in the game? Are you feeling optimistic still because there's still plenty of time? Maybe like 20 more minutes in the first half, and then the entirety of the second.
Yeah, I mean, I think your description, your take on that is right. I mean, it's a nonsense foul that leads up to it, which, again, a lot of times it always feels like the complete abomination. Foul calls lead to a dangerous situation you have to deal with that just wouldn't exist otherwise. But, I mean, Sunderland were in the match, and they were giving it to us a little bit. I mean, to the extent that actually happens, like we are set to like have 60% possession and allow very, very few attacking opportunities. So anytime where you see, I mean, a handful of box touches in the first 15 minutes of a match feels like an existential crisis because of how infrequently it happens. And yeah, I think it was one of those where you had a good player who was, I mean, like Ballard was the best player on the pitch for either team in the match. He had a goal, he had an assist, and he had a couple really, really crucial blocks, including one right at the death against Marino.
Yes.
Which we'll get to. But like, I mean, I think he just is a big, good aerial guy who wins a long header, and again, it just kind of bobbles around in there, and it happens to hit him right in stride to just catch it clean and put it through. And I mean, people are like, oh, it's like a good goal. It's like, it's not a good goal. It's like it's a put in a dangerous position and do the right things, and good things can happen. It's one of those goals. Like, that's going to happen. Like, I don't even think gotten away with stuff, but it's just like, this is what happens when you go away to these clubs that are just going to bash the ball in the mixer. And it gets for as much shit as we get for doing that at a really high level. Like, other clubs can do that too. Like, Dan Ballard the size of a fucking refrigerator, and if you kick the ball at him enough, sometimes he wins the header, and sometimes it bounces around, and then the fridge can just stick his giant fucking foot out there and bash it into the goal from 6 yards out. It's one of those passages of play that you can run it back 10 times and he won't have a cleaner hit on the ball than that. And it's just part of the deal. Like, you either win the first ball, which we didn't do, or you're at the victim of where the ball is going to land and what part of the attacking process the player who it falls to lands to. It's just part of the deal. But again, I don't think it was a situation where I was like super concerned about it, because like, we're a lot better than Sunderland. And a lot of times what happens when people score against Arsenal too is that they get so fucking petrified to concede something, then they just go and block up and brick up and then just don't do anything and give us the ball for the rest of the match. So was it something I was super concerned about? I guess not really. I was concerned insofar as like, we have like 6 of our attackers are hurt, so we don't have anybody to bring on. And I guess maybe that was my bigger concern. It's like, okay, well, we're down to our third striker. We're down to our like kind of 1A, 1B left wing, and Saka's limping through the match, and we know that Ronaldo, who again I'm very familiar with as somebody who like watches Atletico Madrid, like it's like that guy is going to fucking try to break his leg the entire match, and he certainly did, because that's the danger man, like that's the danger point, and Pawson's a moron, and it's at home. So, and Ronaldo again literally is coming off of like 5 years of Diego Simeone. So what is he going to do? He's going to try to rip the inside of his kneecap off every single time he's near him, and I guess my concern was less about we're going to be really suspect at the back, and more concerned with like, is this going to be one of those matches that we're just not going to produce the quality of chances, and we don't have somebody to kick the ball in the net when we do get them? And I guess to some extent that played out, but that was my at least first instinct after we go down.
I also think it was Sunderland's plan all along to play a game that suited a good like a very messy, scrappy fight. And the goal came off of a free kick that the keeper takes and just pumps it basically into the box. I noted that a lot of their chances came off of balls that were fired in the air, and then it was a scrap to win the ball aerially, and then it was about who could get the second ball. There was a couple passages of play. I was just watching highlights, just as we were coming on, just to remind myself of what was going on. And their chances were often off of like a period of play where there are like multiple sequences of contested headers that eventually fall to a Sunderland player, who then makes some sort of pass through somebody because it's broken play, and they get a half chance off of it. I mean, I think it was just their plan to keep the ball outside of a game plan where we get to control the ball, where we get to pass the ball through the lines on the floor. They wanted to keep the ball in the air, play it long. It felt like a vintage 2000 Barclays, like pump the ball long, win headers, win second balls, get the ball into space, take advantage of broken play. And that was basically their 2 goals. And that was their only 2 the real chances of the game. The only 2 chances they put on target were goals. And they came off of very much broken play, half chances, balls in the air, scrambling for a rebound, scrambling for a second ball. And credit to them. I mean, if that was the game plan and that's what they were purposely doing, they got 2 goals from it. And they've scored more goals against us than anybody has in a very long time. So You look at their XG, it was less than 0.5. We had over 2, depending on the model you look at. And they took their 2 chances really well. And we had our chances to probably put 4 or 5 past them. And, it was either a good save by the keeper, it was off the bar, or we just barely missed the post. But sometimes that's the margins you're dealing with. So.
Absolutely. And shortly after there, first and foremost, congrats to them, because I do think that their game plan did kind of stabilize us. I think it did make things far more complicated for us to keep the ball on the floor, as Chris said. Their defenders and their wingers were playing very high up on the pitch, so they kind of went for it for the most part. But the more in a traditional gritty way, in which they're like, okay, let's try to win the 50-50s. The ref is allowing us to be aggressive, and let's see how much we could push that envelope. And ultimately, it just ended up to some really good chances. But this is one of those really weird things where I'm obviously not happy that dropped 2 points, and I view it as 2 drop points. But there's so much to be optimistic about in this game, where I'm just kind of like, me, Chris. I said this early on in the prediction. I feel overwhelmingly confident of how we are playing and what the squad is capable of this season. So I'm looking at this more like a minor setback than anything to be upset about. So it's kind of in a really weird way, I'm kind of just brushing it off. In my mind, I'm like, there's no fucking way we play this game again in this manner and we end up drawing 2-2. So I'm really kind of mellow about it. And of course, we did come out with some positive numbers between international breaks. We'll touch upon that a little bit later towards the end. But for the time being, Chris, let's talk about the Saka goal. Finishes with his weak foot again, not in the top corner that he traditionally does, a little bit lower this time. Dude, when they showed the angle from behind the camera, from behind the goal, dude, that ball absolutely just fucking snuck in a sliver of space, and I was just so impressed that Saka managed to put it. But Rice and his undeniable motor recovers the ball, picks it up. As it picks it up, passes to Merino, and Merino just nice little slight touch to Bukayo Saka, which you give the ball with Saka facing the net, the chances of him scoring are very high. And once again, he's finding his scoring boots on, because mean, he only scored maybe I was going to say a season or two, a game or two ago as well. I was in the cup game, if I'm not mistaken. So it's kind of nice that he's scoring again. He scored again versus I forgot who they played, but they England. He scored again versus England. So it's kind of nice that you kind of get the sense that Saka's kind of coming back into full fitness. He had a few rough games, and it seems like he's picking up full match fitness at a perfect time for us, because we've got 3 very difficult games. Anything you want to highlight from that Saka goal?
I don't know why you keep talking about Saka, Mike, because I think that 3-yard pass to Merino was just exquisite. If I'm just channeling my inner Lee Dixon right now, I'm just gonna wax poetic about the deft touch of
would never do that.
The perfectly weighted pass, the right into his path. He did all the hard work. All Saka had to do was basically blast the ball past the keeper inside the post from a very severe angle with his weak foot. But it was that goal was more about what Mikel Merino did, which was to receive a pass not under pressure and pass it 3 yards to his right. So
this is exactly why Saka doesn't deserve to start for England, by the way.
Exactly. He doesn't deserve to start for Arsenal either. What the hell? Why doesn't he score against, important teams like, I don't know, Manchester City or
Merino? Might as well just bounce it off him into the goal.
Exactly. So no, sorry, I'm taking the piss now, and I'm making fun of a supposed Arsenal legend who never wants to give us our flowers, but I digress. It's the thing that's most impressive, I think, for me is that we used to talk about how Saka was very left-footed, and we don't talk about that anymore. And I bet if we were to go back and count his last, 30 goals, that you'd probably see 7 or 8 of them be right footers. I can think of a lot of times where he scored a goal exactly from that position with his right foot, where he beats the keeper either low and inside the post or high over his shoulder. on his right foot, and he just absolutely just clubs the ball with his off foot in a very, very accurate way, but also with a lot of power behind it. And I think that's a area of his game that is much improved over even just 2-3 seasons ago. So, I mean, yeah, it's started by Declan Rice. He hounds Enzo Lafie and takes the ball off of him like he's, a middle schooler, and Declan Rice is hungry and he needs lunch, right? He takes his lunch money. Yeah. He gives it to as a basically one times it to Marino. Marino turns, sees Saka running off his shoulder, gives him a nice pass in his stride. And from there, you kind of assume that Saka is going to at least put it on frame. And he does. He does it one better. He puts it between the goalkeeper's near post. He basically had a 18-inch window to hit it in, and he slots it perfectly within that 18-inch window. I can't say enough about how easy it looks, but actually how hard it is to execute it.
It's one of the biggest improvements that he's made over the last few years is his ability to finish convincingly and with variety with his off foot. And I think that's kind of like the last, because Saka's exceptional at getting to his left foot, but like people are so afraid of it, and defenders are so afraid of it, they sell out to, 2 yards to his left, right? When he's trying to cut in, and 2 yards to their right, and they're daring him to shoot with his right foot. And so what does Saka do as a counterpunch is that he becomes really good at finishing with his right foot. So all of that is like super encouraging, especially that like other than Marino, like Saka's our best finisher in the club right now. So like he needs to get. We've been great defensively, but honestly, if we're being honest with ourselves, we need to get higher quality finishing between he and the other attacking players, and that's a good sign. I mean, if we're pulling positives out, if he starts getting his shooting boots on and starting to shoot accurately like that from a lot of the presentable positions he gets, that's a heck of a good omen for us moving forward for sure.
Absolutely. He's been by his standards, he's been off to a slow start. So kind of seeing him more involved, it's a welcome surprise, so to say. I know that he was out, he wasn't fit for a little bit, and you could really tell he wasn't fit for a few first games, but really kind of jivey now. So really like that. And Chris, just because you mentioned Lee Dixon, I was literally just a few hours ago, today years old, when I found out that Lee Dixon is a Manchester City supporter, and that his father, Roy Dixon, was a goalkeeper for them, and he grew up going over there and watching them games. And look, man, conspiracy theory here, but like it fucking starts making sense to me, man. Like because I swear to God, like sometimes that some of the commentary that he says, I'm like, there's no way, dude. There's just no way. If he's trying to sound unbiased, then I think he's just taking it too far. Like he's just going overboard.
This is a player who, yes, is most well known for playing for Arsenal, but he played a significant period of his senior career at Stoke. Well, not significant, 3 years, but significant enough. Yeah. He also started his senior career at Burnley. So I don't know. You tell me. Maybe he has a penchant for like a very different style of play because of some of the places he grew up playing at than what maybe people would assume he would enjoy, which is, prime Arsene Wenger free-flowing football that he was a part of for the better part of what he was at Arsenal for 14 years. So yeah, you would think a guy who played most of his career at Arsenal would be an Arsenal supporter, but childhood nostalgia and connections, I think, are quite influential.
And again, my theory on him has always been that like he's known as an invincible, and he didn't have like a super direct contribution to that team, but it still would be considered like the peak of his professional career, I would think. And he seems to be the player most associated with that team that is most protective over the legacy of that team. Insofar as like he really doesn't seem to like Arsenal to be any good. And like, and again, maybe it's just, I know that we know people who maybe know situations more close to the club and have kind of intimated that he's really overtly concerned with being viewed as being preferential. And so he kind of over eggs it the other way and is really like, if Arsenal does anything wrong, he's amplifies his disgust. And if anybody else who's playing against Arsenal does something mildly correct, he over eggs it about how great it is. And it's just a cope with, to make sure to keep yourself and not be going overboard. But like, if he honestly thinks that, I want him to sit down and turn on Sky Sports and turn on how Jamie Carragher and how some like Jamie O'Hara and like some of these other people who are like so basically it's like fan TV for those clubs, and they're doing it on the biggest spotlight. So like, if that's his concern, and shouldn't be, and if he's actually like over egging it, he needs to stop being such a cunt, because it's basically only Ian Wright that's kind of there stepping up and sticking up for Arsenal. And Ian Wright's, I think is taking every year it seems like he's engaging less and less and taking a smaller and smaller role in punditry. And again, thank God Thierry Henry's there for the American coverage, because you want to talk about a guy who won't say anything about Arsenal. If it's like at the club Arsenal, he'll criticize the actual team when we're playing poorly or doing dumb stuff. But like that guy does love him some Arsenal still, and he will look with a straight face in the way that only Thierry Henry can, and just stare daggers through people.
And Ian Wright played most of his career at Crystal Palace. He's more of a Crystal Palace guy in terms of his playing career than he ever was at Arsenal. But the man fell in love with Arsenal. So
yeah, I find, and maybe that's why Lee Dixon's like how he speaks about Arsenal is so jarring, because it's really not something that we see from Arsenal legends very often, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, usually the people who are that key for that long for Arsenal view us with some level of like deference and appreciation, and like there's some, not even loyalty is the wrong way of saying it, but like there's a respect for the culture of the club and the club as in like kind of like a public utility and like Premier League entity, and he just doesn't carry any of that. Like, it's more like, oh, I played there, and yep, and he makes cracks about how wasn't able to run and everything, and it's like, then Bukayo Saka has a bad touch, and it's like, I think he should die. What do you think, Brandon? And it's kind of like it's one of those things where I can't reconcile how he speaks about Arsenal and how he treats Arsenal on like a really fun stage with the fact that he played here for a long time, and again, juxtaposing how people who are like how Gary Neville speaks about and refers to Manchester United with such love and deference, and how Jamie Carragher is constantly going to the pump for Liverpool. Like, we get less than none of that from Lee Dixon, who's again, to the extent that he's popular, who has a voice over in England, I don't know, but he's on the A-team color commentary for Premier League matches in America. So we hear him all the time. And so we hear him cream his pants about like a deflected goal for like Leicester City. But if Arsenal doesn't win 10-0, he wants to turn the Emirates into like a garbage dump, basically.
I'm telling you, man, I'm totally for, if I had, because I got a taste of it during the preseason games, where we had to like purchase the games to watch on the Arsenal website. Whoever the commentary team is, as an Arsenal supporter watching it at Arsenal.com, listening to that commentary team say us and we almost went ahead. Oh, bro, I absolutely fucking loved it. Now, can Lee Dixon do that? No, it'd be too much. I understand that, but just give us a little is all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
I will say, like, so that happens in America too, to the extent that people are listening outside of America. Like, we have local broadcasting coverage for our teams. So America's very big, and so unless you're in like the biggest television markets, you have one team. And so like for the I'm from Minnesota, so the Minnesota Vikings have this really ridiculous like play-by-play guy who does just audio only play-by-play for the Vikings, but he's always quoted, and they always pull sound bites from him when the Vikings do something good on ESPN, because he's so biased and so ridiculous. It's actually really, really fun, because it's like when somebody does, like, he goes like, "You're cheating," like when somebody misses a call and he just freaks out and acts like a total lunatic.
That's what I need in my life, Kelly.
It honestly does add to it's actually pretty fun. The guy's a complete asshole, and his name is Paul Allen, but like he's been the play-by-play guy for the Vikings for like 25 years. And I swear to God, he's going to die in the chair. It's his favorite thing in life. So it's like, I totally get that. It's like, no, like that guy is one of us. Like, I could see, again, like a separate independent broadcast where it's like, nope, I'm watching this through the Arsenal app today. And then it's like, whoever, it's Ian Wright or somebody in there, and he's like totally losing his mind and like cackling and stuff when Arsenal score. Like, I can get behind that.
I'm going to pay Sebi to just narrate the games for me. And just like
3 beers deep, Sebi would be a great narrator as well.
Yeah, he would be.
Let's get back to this game, gentlemen. Chris, in the honor of making up some time, after the Saka goal, we had 1, 2, 3 back-to-back chances. I think Trossard was involved in all 3 of these chances, and he capitalized with the actual goal. So one of his better performances, in my opinion, but as we know on the podcast, and anybody that's listening to this podcast for more than 3 episodes, I'm fond of Trossard. So I already view him fondly, so I appreciate the work that he puts in. But he put in a beautiful pass from Zubimendi, who was making a run into the box, but he flinged his left foot, but unfortunately just missed it. There was another opportunity shortly after that. Eze received it on his chest, let it go on a half volley. So close, no cigar. And of course, the Zubimendi hits the crossbar. And that was, it would have been such a good goal, Chris. I mean, from the outside, It was bending, it was dropping. It's just, if it would have dropped probably like another inch, that ball most likely hits the post and goes in. And we're talking about that goal all day long. Or we're talking about that goal for the entire international break. So that's just 3 back-to-back. Like you mentioned earlier in the podcast, Sunderland finished with 0.44 on the XG. We finished with 2.09. So we had substantially more chances. And out of all the opportunities that we had, out of all the close shots that we had, Trossard comes through out of nowhere and just rockets a ball on the top bins. And I'm just absolutely losing my shit, minute 70th or not, 70th or so, Chris. And I quite frankly, probably overconfident because of our defensive record. I'm feeling pretty confident about this. Trossard comes in once again. I think it was his 50th goal contribution in the league. He has a lot more than that. If you start looking at his numbers as far as assists, goals per minute, it's actually quite ridiculous. He's easily one of the better purchases we've had in a very long time. So. Yep. Up in the 70-something minute, I don't know the minute exact, by a rocket from Trossard from the outside. Feeling confident this time around. If Kelly was feeling confident about turning the game around when Sunderland scored, how are you feeling after the 2-1, Chris?
I mean, again, I said before, we haven't given up 2 goals in a very long time. Maybe last time was to PSG in the Champions League. Maybe. That's a very good PSG team. PSG and Sunderland are not the same. And we had given about 3 goals the whole season up until this point. So I was feeling really good after Trossard got his goal. In fact, I thought we might get another one only because the Trossard goal was coming. To your point, Mike, we had a number of opportunities, and if it goes, an inch under the crossbar, we're talking about 2-1 up in the 65th minute with maybe Trossard adding a third. So I was feeling really good. I was watching the game actually at my local bar with some friends. I had to leave early because I had to take my son to basketball practice. And I think I left around the 85th minute, 84th minute. And I was feeling really good leaving the bar. I was like, we got this. We got another win. We're going to the international break. We're up however many points on Liverpool and City, and I'm feeling really good. And then all of a sudden I turn my phone on while I'm driving. I have it up on my dash as I drive. I'm really bad like that.
So this is your fault.
It's just my fault. Yeah, I'm being blamed by my friends, by the way, for leaving the pub early, but I digress.
Should not have left the pub, sir.
Good.
I have responsibilities, man. And we give up the second one. So yeah, that felt like a gut punch. And yet I felt like given when that goal came for Sunderland, I still felt like we might have another one in us, because I felt like we were putting them under some massive pressure in the second half. I thought that second half was one of our better halves of the season, in terms of the number of chances we were creating from open play. And yeah, I just felt like it was our game. It was our game to win, given how we were playing in that second half. We had a number of chances, I know, towards the end of the game. I think there was a clearance off the line. There was a couple blocks in the 6-yard box. It just wasn't to be. So fair play to Sunderland. It was a very scrappy, very physical. You have to take your hat off to a team who's newly promoted, who's maybe half their squad is new to the club. I mean, they spent a ton of money in the offseason, and they could have easily have lost their way, and that team couldn't have gelled. But I think, to go back to the Xhaka conversation for a moment, I think that's why teams like, I think it's Brentford who brought Henderson back.
Yep.
Brought him back, because I think senior leadership can help a team that feels a bit disjointed gel from a leadership perspective. And I think in many ways, you can think about Xhaka as the glue that connects all of these disparate pieces that they've brought from the ends of the earth this summer into some sort of cohesive whole, because you've got a guy who's seen everything, who's been in the Bundesliga, has been at the top level at Arsenal, has seen every opponent, who has always kind of been a natural leader, has always been a captain wherever he's gone, whether it's been in Germany or here. And I think it's that kind of mentality, that kind of personality that can rally a bunch of guys who may be too young for the moment, maybe don't have the experience at the top level, maybe don't quite know what it's like to compete in the Premier League against a team like Arsenal. And given that he used to play for us under Arteta, probably had some things to say to the team that helped them weather the storms that they faced against us. So again, hats off to them. They've been a really tough out this season, a really tough matchup this season. They beat some really good teams. Right now they're in the top 4, I believe. I'm not looking at the table, but I think if they're not in the top 4, they're near the top 4. That's nowhere. That's I think we all had predicted they would be relegated this season, just like every other team that comes up in the last couple of years. And they're on a points pace where they might, finish in the top half of the season. So hats off.
Yeah, actually, just talking about the predictions, if I recall correctly, I had initially predicted that they were going to go down, and then I said, you know what? No, fuck it. Xhaka's going to keep them up. So
yeah, wrong.
Yeah, hey, so far so good. I will say that.
It's a hell of a call.
On their goal, Kelly. Well, okay, let's talk about what happened before the goal. And this is one of those things that, in my personal opinion, again, I'm choosing to be very optimistic about this for whatever fucking reason here, Kelly. But a lot of people are discussing the idea of the substitutions. 21 substitution, 88th minute, and the whole idea was the fact that it was Mosquera for Eza. Is that they invited pressure. Now, we were in a fairly commanding space. I also think that, kind of credit in the bank in the sense that you if you're Mikel Arteta and your Arsenal defense, you feel entitled to say we could close out a game. They've been doing it so well up until this point of the season. They had already scored, so we had received only 4 goals in 12, 13, 15 matches or so. I'm forgetting how many Champions League and league games we've actually played, but some ridiculous amount of goals and not conceded pretty much. And a lot of the people were saying like he should have brought an attacker. Now, my initial thought was like, dude, Kai Havertz, Gabriel Jesus, Gyökeres, Madueke, Martinelli, like there was only a handful of attackers. I mean, realistically, you're putting Ethan Ranieri and Max Dowman to get murdered by Sunderland. That's how I view it. You could say Harry Menanus, but realistically, we weren't in an attacking threat at the last minute or so because we were trying to close down the game.
It's a child.
Other than that, we had a shitload of defenders and a goalkeeper. So I don't know. I view this as like a very normal game, and also somebody else pointed out. I think Arsblog pointed out that it was it was also the last game prior to international break. And maybe in the back of the mind, Mikel Arteta said, I could ride this out.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about that? Because I am incredibly okay with the substitution of Mosquera. Again, I feel like we've earned the right to feel that we could close out a game 2-1. And so for me, using that perspective, it wasn't such like a bad thing to introduce another defender and just sit with the back five for the last 5 minutes of the game. So had you wished that he took a little bit more of a, productive, optimistic approach, so to say, including Waneri and Dalman, and just put a little bit more pressure on the back line, or are you comfortable with the defensive substitution?
No, I think that that's an oversimplification, like you said too. The attackers that were on the bench were Harry Mananus, who played only because there's nobody else to play. Dalman, who is 15 years old, no matter what we think about him. Ethan, who's been playing almost exclusively as an interior player, right? He's been playing almost exclusively from the right 8 attacking midfielder position, which sounds like it was part of his contract extension and part of the long-term plan for him. We're missing 6 first-team attackers, including Mikel Merino, who would go up and play striker later on in the match if he wasn't already playing striker. So, I think this is what happens when you get cluster injuries. You get in specific position groups, you get to the point where you're playing very, very young players, or you're playing players out of position, and there's knock-on effects to that. I agree with you. The bet would have been that I think the calculated risk, especially knowing that we are literally 10 to 15 minutes away from the international break, and again, the cavalry arriving, because there's 4 of the attackers appear to be ready to come back after this international break. The idea was just getting through the next 10 to 15 minutes. That was the goal. The players were whacked. We had played 3 away games on the spin inside of a week. People don't want to hear that, but it's just that's the deal, man. If there would have been 3 subs, if there were 3 first-team attackers that could have come on to hold up play. Again, the idea that Arteta was doing that to be a prick is crazy to me, because we had first-team defenders, and then we had a bunch of kids, and that's in the last 10 minutes in an away match. Especially you got to set the circumstance too. So they're super up for it. They're at home. They're fresh because they don't have any sort of European football. They have a really, really nice at-home whistle. It kind of feels like their day, where they got a goal out of nowhere. They've miraculously kept the ball out a couple of times. It is kind of like a date with destiny type of day, is what it felt like. Sometimes the best bet is just to fucking bear down and try to get through it. And again, it didn't work, but I will get to why it didn't work. I don't think it didn't work because that was the wrong move. It didn't work because we didn't execute properly in a key moment. And to the extent that you think that bringing Max Dalman into that environment and have Ronaldo again kick his balls off his body and not get a foul called, I don't know. I think that's very much like FIFA, EA Sports Football 25. Was bringing the fresh legs. It's that's not how real life works. It was really about getting to the next 10 to 15 minutes. And I'm very, very confident that had we played that the second weird kind of deflection, things fall right to make a chance moment, if we wouldn't have played it poorly, we would have won 2-1 and we wouldn't be too concerned about it. But that's not what happened. As far as the substitution pattern goes, there's no reasonable person to come in and play. And again, frankly, I'd rather have a flagging Mikel Merino and Declan Rice on the pitch than replacing them with Harry Mananus and Ethan out of position. Because guess what? If you end up having to defend a corner kick in the last 10 seconds of the game and Danny Arden bashes the fucking thing in there because there's nobody to put a body on him, then you look like an asshole too. So I think that this was the best bad option that we had, and we played a key circumstance poorly, and everything went right for it to go in. And credit to them for putting the ball there, and credit to Brian Brobby for throwing his giant foot in there. But that was just a club and a group of players that were on the rack, and a couple guys made bad decisions, and here we are.
Couldn't get myself off of mute there. Sorry. I was desperately clicking and clicking. So that's game 2-2. One thing that the score guy, I actually have this. I saved it for the time being. Score guy, which is a very popular account on Twitter. If you haven't seen him, you have to know about him if you're an Arsenal supporter. He's often get caught in the camera. He's often, giving you the score.
Got pitch side seats to every home game. What a life he lives.
I think he's related to Magic Mike, honestly.
What a difficult life it is. But just something, because again, I mentioned I was going to bring up Sky Sports again, Chris, and once again, it says twice in the last 3 years, Manchester City has come from behind and cut Arsenal. Are Manchester City going to challenge Arsenal for the title this season? Okay, a few things here. Bullshit with this underdog shit. They've been downplaying Manchester City all fucking season. And I don't know where the fuck do they get the storyline from. I don't know where they get the storyline from. They, everybody gives Liverpool shit for spending $500 million in the summer. And everybody's just kind of casually ignoring the fact that Manchester City also spent like 200-300 in January and followed up with another 200 in summer. So it's not like they didn't fucking spend. They just said, "Oh, we have a few injuries, so we're going to spend 300 million in fucking January." What team spends that amount of money in January? So they've been riding this underdog bullshit for the entire, and the media just fucking lapping it up. And all of a sudden, because they hit stride and Haaland can't stop scoring to save his fucking life, everybody's like, "Oh, well, here comes Manchester City. They're title contenders, aren't they?" Yeah, no fucking shit. Like this whole storyline doesn't make any fucking sense to me. Anyways, Score Guy quote tweets them and says, before the October international break, Arsenal had 1 point lead versus Liverpool, 3 on Manchester City, 5 points lead on Chelsea. After the international, or going into this international break, now we're 4 points ahead of Manchester City, 6 on Chelsea, and 8 on Liverpool. It's a net positive 3 points. So everybody's trying to spin this like, "Oh my God, we dropped 2 points." And I understand, and like I think Mika Arteta himself mentioned this, that the club and the players are viewing it and feeling it like a loss, and I get that. But the idea that we're on some horrible trajectory right now, I don't know, Chris. I'm not fucking buying into it. I'm not ready to. Again, I've been telling you guys this all season. I've been telling your listener all season. I'm not prepared to be mad about a lot of things this season. In a performance like this, Sunderland is doing really good. You got to give them their flowers. Yes, it was a series of events that led to a really fucking wild goal. Had it been the other way around, we would have been celebrating this goal. I mean, I don't think there was a foul. I think Gabriel was holding his shirt. He was holding Gabriel's shirt. David Raya, sure, you could say, hey, he was hyped up after the 2 or 3 really good saves he had prior to the goal. And yeah, sure, if he would have stayed on his line, most likely the ball had no pace. He would have been able to stop it. But I'm summing this up as a one and done. And I'm fully thinking we're going to hit the ground running when we come back from international break. Fully aware that we got Chelsea, Spurs, Bayern Munich, and Chelsea. 3 very difficult games. As our Gunnar blog said, the cavalry is coming. We have multiple offensive players coming in. I didn't even mention Odegaard earlier when I was talking about our offensive players being out.
Hold on. He might have picked up a hand injury cheering really, really hard for Norway.
Don't you sass me, sir. Thank you very much. It's going to be a difficult games to introduce them, but I don't know. Like I said, I'm feeling pretty optimistic about everything. How are you guys feeling total about the title race, for the sake of the conversation on this podcast? Why we tie it up in the 13th of November, or November 13th, as they would say over there. How are you guys feeling with this title hopes? Still optimistic for the most part? Not being rattled, or are you guys getting any nervous whatsoever with the fact that Manchester City are breathing down our throats again?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, give me you.
Sure. I think you always have to be aware of what Man City's doing, and they started off the year a bit slow, but since then, with Haaland's goal tally, I think as long as he keeps putting the ball in the back of the net, I mean, it's been said a lot that essentially City start every game up 1-0 because Haaland's good for a goal every game, and that's basically the pace that he's on, maybe even more than a goal a game. So, if you're already down 1-0 to Man City every time you play them, they're going to win a lot of games. I think what's laughable is that what the criticism that's levied at Arsenal, or had been up until this game, was that the way we played is unsustainable. Well, motherfucker, you've got a striker at Man City who has scored 80% of their goals. If that's not unsustainable, I don't know what is, because all it will take is an injury to Erling Haaland, who's out for a couple of games, and you're going to see Man City struggle to score. I mean, I'm convinced of it. I don't even know who their natural backup is at striker. I mean, they're probably going to have to play an attacking midfielder or a winger there. Maybe it's what's his face.
Is Mamouche a striker or is he a winger?
He's a winger, but he has played striker in Germany in the past. So he's probably their natural backup, but I don't think that's necessarily his out and out position. I think
he would play that position very differently. It's not like,
yes,
there's no one for one, but even he wouldn't play it like Šeško would maybe play an out and out striker for City, like similarly,
yes.
right?
Or even Gyökeres,
or Gyökeres
in Portugal. Yeah,
but that's not how Marmouche is a 9.5, 10.
Yeah, he's more like a
Havertz. And he's in like really poor form, which is why he hasn't played or scored or done much. He was came out like a house on fire, and they kind of got the book on him, and people figured out what he did, and then he just doesn't play very much now. So that was my big thing too with them. It's like, well, how are Arsenal going to continue to be this solid defensively? But yeah, City are coming again with one guy who, for them to continue to produce the way they're producing, he's going to have to score 45 Premier League goals. And he could do it. He very well could do it. And if he does it, it's probably going to deeply ensconce them in the title race, and he's probably going to win the Ballon d'Or. But he's also probably the best player in the world. So that's what happens when you have that guy. So
yeah, and I mean, you look at like the goal difference right now on the table. We're both at plus 15. You look at the XG difference. We're actually at a plus 13. They're at a plus 9. So all the general stats, the underlying stats would all suggest that both teams are, at least at this point, legit. Obviously, a lot of things can happen. Looks like we're on pace for something like a high 90s, low 100 points output. I don't think that we will continue to get points at that pace. I think, the winner will probably have something around 90. So I think we're where we want to be. And I think you look at, we've played 11 games. We've dropped, we've had 2 draws, 1 loss. The 1 loss is against a team that hit a set piece worldie against us, who I think we'll do the business against them when we play them again in Liverpool. Man City basically scored in the first 15 minutes of the game and then bunkered for 80 minutes to try to hold on. And luckily we scored a goal to rescue a point. And then this game, which I think we battered Sunderland. I don't think anybody could watch that game and not think that we probably were the better team, but that's football. So yeah, I think it's way too early to tell, but I think the early returns are really good. And to your point, Mike, we have really key personnel coming back, especially on the attacking side, which I think will allow us to play a bit more open and aggressive. I think we were seeing at the beginning of the season when we had more fit players that we were willing to play early balls up the pitch sooner, as opposed to maybe possessing the ball and playing in a more controlled manner like we did last year. I think that kind of style is more entertaining. It probably produces more goals, but it also taxes attacking legs a bit more because you're playing a lot more in transition. You're doing a lot more repeat sprints. You're putting a lot more stress on muscles, hamstrings, quads, etc. And so you can't necessarily play that way every single game if you want to stay healthy throughout the course of a season. And I think this point's been made too on other podcasts, but I think it's a really good one, is when we played exciting football and we entertained all the neutrals, we won a ton of games until we didn't, because we suffered a ton of injuries and we could not hold on. And I think Arteta's learned, and I think what he's learned is the more entertaining, more high intensity, high octane, repeat sprint kind of football you play, the more likely you're going to incur an injury crisis. And that's what's tanked the better part of 2 of our last 3 seasons. And I think teams that often win Premier Leagues are teams that actually play the boring football, where they don't they play in second gear when they can. They pick their spots where they're going to ramp up the intensity, but no team can play at a kind of in fifth gear every single game. It just doesn't happen. Teams can't do it for a whole season, especially playing all the games that we have to play.
And just because you said about entertaining other people, I remember Mourinho just fucking demolishing us by saying that the Arsenal supporters started chanting "boring, boring Chelsea," and he said, "For me, boring is not winning anything for 8 years." Yeah. Right. And then just because for shits and giggles, I went to check their record, right? And of course, 15 goals, 15 or 13 conceded, which is,
15. Yeah.
Okay. Just amazing defensive work. Right. Well, we outscored them. We've scored more goals in the 3 seasons in which we finished second. Mm-hmm. So who gives a shit about entertaining? You think that Mourinho or the Chelsea supporters at that point in time give a shit about anybody being entertaining? They won the league. That's all they care about. This again, man, this whole media bias thing is just absolutely fucking insane to me. I don't quite understand it.
It's only an issue because Arsenal are playing what's described as boring. That's the only any other situation it's not an issue. And that's even the Jamie O'Hara with the long throws thing, how it's like Arsenal are ruining the game with long throws, and we're ranked 11th in long throws attempted.
I love that, by the way. Did you guys catch the clip by the way where Sunderland purposely
move the advertising in,
the advertising in order to give us less space for the one,
and they rely more on long throws than we do, so they actually hurt themselves.
As I watched the game, I was like, didn't this kind of backfire on them too? Because they had a lot of long throws.
But I think that's also a representation of how much this stuff it matters, that these weird things permeate the football culture over there. I think it's a real thing. And how Granit Xhaka is able to go through this game kicking the shit out of everybody and screaming and carrying on like a baby, and he doesn't get carded. But when he's at Arsenal, there's segments about his ill discipline and how can you continue with these. I just think that we are one of those clubs that, especially in my theory on this, my meta theory has always been that the Premier League became a worldwide thing in the late 90s when Liverpool was winning Champions Leagues and Manchester United were mopping up domestically, and those two clubs produced the majority of the English national team that was deep in the tabloids and drawing all the David Beckham stuff and yada yada. And Arsenal was the team that was in favor because we had all the foreign-born players. And we were changing, and Wenger was changing how the culture. And anytime you have cultural change and innovators, especially when they come from outside of the actual culture and country, there's going to be resistance. And I think the watching public in the greater football media on a large national and global level was spawned out of that culture, right? And so Arsenal were the asshole club of that, the continental foofy club that was ruining it for everybody. And so the children of that, the players that were involved in that, and the media people who were developed and brought up and wrote stories in that initially, those are all the people who are the power brokers over there now, and they cannot get past it. Even though this game is so continental now, and all these major clubs have players from fucking South America and Africa and Asia and every other place in the world, that's still that kind of sneering contempt for Arsenal for ruining the English game is still pervades a lot of the dialogue and a lot of the perception, and it's still there. And I think you see it in Jamie O'Hara's fat face. I think you hear it in the incoherent utterances of a CTE'd fucking Jamie Carragher when he's not spitting at children, like in Roy Keane, who's literally a sociopath and tried to end people's careers. We're asking Roy Keane about his observations on life and every other fucking thing. The biggest thing is don't talk to these fucking idiots, because the island's pretty small over there. And the good old boy network is pretty established, and they just run their same bullshit up the flagpole. And that's why we knew coming into this week, it was like, what bullshit Arsenal story are they going to concoct? And it's like, oh, yep, Miles Lewis-Skelly now. Lewis-Skelly doesn't want to be there. Doesn't want to be there. He's not even starting. Like, obviously he wants to go. Other teams are on the lookout because obviously he wants to leave now because he's being disrespected. It's like, you guys just treated him like a fucking war criminal for having an overturned red card like a year ago, not even a year ago. So what are you talking about? But it's all the common dog that Manchester United fans and City fans and Liverpool fans and Chelsea fans can all kick is Arsenal. And so the media and the whole ecosystem of kind of high level English punditry is very, very happy to like starve that dog, put him outside, and make sure that everybody takes a hack at him when they walk by. And that's just what they do. And again, we haven't heard shit about. There's a verdict was rendered on City's 115 cheating charges, and we don't hear anything about that. And we don't hear anything about. We don't even hear like a ton about Liverpool absolutely capitulating now after spending like $500 million on attacking players that don't play and can't score a goal. It's about Miles Lewis-Skelly and how other teams are. He obviously hates Arsenal and again wants to leave immediately. Like that's the story.
The 115 charges thing. I guess I'm going to refer to it as mishandling. Yeah. And at some extent, I just assume that there's some Manchester City fans that would also kind of like this shit to be over. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they've managed to drag it along and make it in such a soap opera that it's become, it's just baffling that they managed to like just change everything this much. Like I find it just amazing that they managed to pull this apart and make this thing last like what? I mean, I'm at a loss. We're like 3 to 4 years in this investigation at this point.
So Mikey, here's another left field thing for me because I'm on my third drink. But like, so there's you ever heard of the company called
one more left field thing?
Yeah. One more left field thing is Ron's name. So like, you guys remember Theranos, the like the healthcare the biotech company, right? Yeah. And so the reason why Theranos was a big scam, but like they pretended like they had this like technology that was really groundbreaking and was going to make a huge difference in the healthcare industry, and they just kept bullshitting their way, and they just kept bullshitting some more. And part of the reason why the last couple of years they extended off is that they actually did industry trade, like share trade, to like one of the biggest law firms in the country called Boyce Schiller. And David Boyce at the time was like one of the most powerful, maybe the biggest litigator for like years. Like he argued to like overturn like the same-sex marriage ban, and like he worked for presidents and political parties, and like so he's like his billing was like over $1,000 an hour to have David Boyce run your legal team. And so he took on that in exchange for stock. So like if the company valuation goes up, he does that. So they basically extended this bullshit and this fraud for like 3 years because they had the best lawyers in the United States of America running deflection and intimidating people and like forcing people to sign NDAs and like having intimidating these normal people who would have been whistleblowers much sooner because they had this legal heft of the biggest and most powerful law firm and lawyer in the country to silence these people and keep stringing along. That's what Manchester City is doing. They have more money than God, than literal Christian God, to spend on this. They have the fucking well to the middle of the world that is worth them, and they cannot spend. These people cannot live long enough. They couldn't live 1,000 lifetimes and spend this money if it was coming out of a fucking water hose. And so what are they going to do? They're going to go and tie this up in litigation until the end of time and do everything they can. And there's so much legalese and there's so much red tape that can go in there. If you have incredibly talented people that you're willing to pay an unconscionable amount of money to drag this out, you can do that. And that's what they're doing. They're turning this into a battle of attrition to see how much they can go and settle for, because they say, okay, we literally have trillions of dollars. So like, what the fuck are you going to do? Are you going to fight us for 10 years? And at some point, people just go, oh my God, fucking whatever. Here's your slap on the wrist. Will you just leave us alone, you fucking sociopaths? Like, that's the goal that they're trying to do, is that they're going to tie this up in legalese for so long that they're going to force a an absolutely hilariously mild outcome for themselves just because they have money and because they have so much money and because they're so shameless in what they do and so unrepentant and so they don't care. When you have that much fuck you money, you can literally say fuck you to the entire world because what's going to happen to you?
Not a damn thing. And that's how they're going to probably end up pushing it towards. Well, they're not going to. I think there is going to be a conclusion nearby, but I think it dragged along so much where they're at the period, as you said, Kelly, where they're just going to be. Yeah. It's going to be a slap in the wrist. It's not going to be what everybody wants. At least what I generally think, for as much people like to talk their banter online and everything, I generally think the majority of supporters would rather see them stripped from their titles. It happened in Italy when they were caught like, bending rules. Juve, they just stripped the titles and just left them vacant. And I wish more sports would be willing to strip a title and leave it vacant, but it's almost like they see it as a stain on the league, and I think they just kind of often opt to not do that, which
I agree with Mikey.
Which also is a stain on the league in its way, but.
Of course,
gentlemen, we jumped into the game, obviously the league, Manchester City, and somehow we finished up with oligarchs and politics. So I think the podcast has run its course. I think it's safe to say.
A normal Thursday on our podcast for sure.
We covered 19 topics, guys. We're awesome.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, we kept it to a minimum today. So job well done, boys. That's for sure.
Good process. Well done. Yeah.
There you go. Of course, find my good mate Chris on @SuburbanAFC on the Twitters. Kelly, of course, is at South Metro AFC. My name is Mike Hers. You can find me at Mike Hers FC. I have been your host for tonight. You could also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Charles, I love you. Thank you so much for chiming in. I will try to get to your answer next week, but you caught us towards the end, my friend. I will catch you all later. Peace.
Right foot this time, Martin Odegaard.
Zinchenko from Ketchia, it's in, it's four. Martinelli tiptoeing in. Predatory, perfect. There is a gorgeous arrogance about Arsenal now.
It really is. They are enjoying every second of this.